This is our week 4 summary. We'll be doing a screencast to kind of go over all that we did this week and what we learned. The one I chose to use that I kind of found that was a little bit easier, didn't have really any issues with, was Screencast-O-Matic. That's what I used for our Arduino project and for this summary as well. So one of the first things we did this week was the discussion after watching the video Waiting for Superman, which is basically like a video documentary just kind of explaining the public school systems in our nation today and how they're kind of flawed by a great deal, and it's for a number of reasons too. There's a number of factors that kind of play a key to it. Watching the video, I thought that was pretty interesting because for the longest time I always thought it just came down to, just obviously the student themselves. You want to make sure you have kids that actually want to learn. You want to make sure you have teachers who want to teach. Grade have to be good, but it was very interesting to see that there's a lot of other things going on for our public schools. Like, it's not enough for people coming in to say that they want to change and to reform it, that there's a lot of obstacles really that kind of impede reforming our public school systems, which is horrible because you have a lot of students that actually do want to learn, but they don't really have the opportunities to go to better schools, and the schools that they're forced to go to are ones that kind of are declining in performance, and there's really kind of no way out for them. The other thing I kind of like too is this subject, or this video. There's a lot of discussion going on between, myself and some of our other classmates. A lot of people had their, a lot of the same opinions and different opinions. We just kind of talked about them. And what we did next this week as well was kind of our neat resources. The one I came up with was the 6 reasons a non-computer nerd might want to learn to code. And it's just kind of like a little brief read, just going over, kind of like the logical aspects, or more like the idealistic aspects of coding today, and how it has, its benefits of not just like a programmer. You can do stuff like in your hobby. It just really kind of helps you overall, and especially with the way technology is going these days, that it'd be a lot better to, have a good understanding, or at least a gist of, what coding actually is used for. Some of the other ones I kind of liked as well that some of the other students noted was, I think Aaron posted this one. It was as a video. They kind of just talked about computer sciences for everyone. Same kind of concept. This gentleman, he kind of talked about how in schools today, computer science isn't really highlighted anymore, that there's actually schools that don't even have any computer science involved at all. And he was kind of wanted to create, ways to kind of go around this. It just goes on to say the same thing, that with, technology going in the way it's going, there's a lot more need for computer science, not just students, but just all around, people, from like programmers, that all kinds of companies are going to need programmers these days. The other one I thought was neat was from, Ashley put this one up, which is kind of like a real, almost, like a general concept for coding, as far as like clarity and being able to understand what people are writing, because coding is a whole another language in itself. And kind of what like this article highlights is that usually when people are doing a coding, and it kind of gets sent off, and other people are left to kind of decode it or fix it or anything, and they never even really had any part in writing the actual original code. So this article is just kind of like how kind of highlights the importance of being able to write clear code. Like, obviously you want the code to do what it was meant to do, but in the code itself, being able to kind of highlight and list, how it's written, to where other people that kind of look at the code or won't be confused by it and can kind of follow it rather easily, rather than getting lost in whatever was written. One of the other things we learned this week was electric fields. We were able to go to this website. It should load up right here. Basically, you can kind of mess around with electric fields. They have like positive charges, negative charges, and you get the idea of how these fields kind of interact. Thought I had it set up earlier, but so you just kind of pick charges. You can use these sensors to kind of move around. It shows you like the magnitude and the direction, like these little sensors would have at certain positions around, depending on what charges are on the field. Basically, all these charges right here will create a electric field that's going to dictate the interaction of other things that have a charge to them. So that one's pretty cool. You can kind of mess around with it. This website was pretty useful because you can kind of get a real good understanding of what these magnitude and directions are going to have depending on where you're at in this field, and kind of did a little bit more extra research into it to kind of get a better understanding on it. So I definitely kind of learned a little bit more from this. I still kind of have to mess around with it a lot because I don't have the greatest understanding of it still, but still messing around. And we did a couple worksheets as well with this one. The other one we did was kind of like this PDF file that we downloaded that talked about electric fields as well. We went through this first couple, I think it was like 8 pages. So just kind of highlighting too how electric fields work and what the relationships are between, like, your charges and other objects that they're going. It's a good read. And then what else we did as well? Oh, Python was another thing we kind of worked with here too. We used our glow script to kind of mess around with it. So we created an account with glow script and just wrote some basic codes with Python to go over, or written some programs to kind of go. So like these are some of the ones that I did, the lessons 1 through 9. And what we would do I'll run this one real quick. So you can kind of see the interaction that they're having. Like this guy's going to constant velocity. This guy's accelerating. Basically, we were just writing our code, into these, so these programs would run. I thought this was pretty interesting. A lot of it was kind of very repetitive, but it was pretty interesting to go through and kind of really look at what each code's kind of highlighting and what it's making each of the objects do when you actually run the program. So I thought that was pretty cool. You can kind of mess around with some of the values in here to get it to do different things. I did that, and then so I kind of learned how, basically, a bit better understanding with coding on this guy using Python. Then we finished up all the lessons and then turned those guys in. One of the last things we kind of did this week was our Arduino projects. The one that we had is me and my partner Mitzi. We had the Arduino Project 13, the touchy-feely lamp. I mean, obviously you guys can go to this and view the video. We didn't get to go on Friday, so we'll be going on Wednesday. So you guys will be able to see it then, but if you want to see it now, it's already posted up. Little overview of it was basically kind of incorporating the capacitive sensor into our coding. So the breadboard setup wasn't really all that bad, but it was really the coding that kind of played a big role. So what the capacitive sensor library did was measures the capacitance of objects, really. So basically how much electrical charge they can store. And that kind of, when it was all set up, let me see if we can find a part. Basically, you'd be able to touch this sensor right here, which is this aluminum piece of foil. So whenever you would touch it, your just like a finger or any part of your body, the sensor would give it a sensor value. And then we had set a threshold as part of our code as well. So whenever that sensor value would go above that threshold, this little light right here would flick on and off. So basically kind of like an on and off switch whenever you touch this piece of aluminum foil. There. So that was a pretty cool project, but once again we'll go over that a little bit later on Wednesday. Alright, so just kind of wrap this screencast up. Pretty much we went over this week, or what we kind of learned about, was the waiting for Superman discussion. We did those electric fields, worked with some VPython coding, and we finished up our first Arduino projects and presented them on Friday, and we still need to go on Wednesday. And kind of making any connections to these, I mean, obviously we're messing around more with like better understanding with charge of objects and how they'll interact with each other, given their certain electric fields. The other one I kind of like too, as far as connecting to my life personally, was the Superman, waiting for Superman video, because being a parent myself, you kind of start to think about, what your child's going to go through whenever they're going through, the school system. For the most part, I've never really had any issues with my son's school. He's in second grade now, and he's always been pretty good, and most of the teachers I've seen him go to were all pretty good. So it's going to be interesting to see how he's progressing and what different schools he's going to attend, and what effects they have as far as like just the teachers, staff, other students. So that's going to be pretty interesting. That kind of concludes the summary for week 4 for this class. Thank you.